Everything is for sale over West. A childhood, a last name, a sky. Today I saw 3 generations of sunsets rotting on the horizon. In fact, the sun stopped rising yesterday. My grandmother's house almost forgot itself. Couldn't recall the wallpaper in the living room, now crumbling to a dust. Sweeping our summers up into urns and burning a hole where the moon went. Sometimes it can feel like the alchemy of urban redevelopment is meddling in our golden age, transmuting copper skin into nickel, and paper-thin blueprints that erase our footprints, but there is memory in the marble. The vacants have faces, its ancient air taking the shape and sound of our lives, like kitchens crowded with growling mothers, or first kisses discovered somewhere in the basement, or the sound of cousins breaking something at the family function, or Baltimore accents thicker than mud, piling up on the front porch and spilling out onto the street and riding the breeze, or the sound of our feet clawing at the floorboards when the club bass enters the pores and sends an earthquake through our bones. We are a home of complicated people who sometimes carry sirens in our smiles and laugh through the pain in the name of living on anyway. After all, this is our neighborhood. This is my house. I kept its lights burning until they were stars, carved its name in the earth, and in return it held my every last, my every first. My growing pains are ingrained in the brick. We built this off the strength of love. My great-grandmother's wombs is woven in the walls. I was born against the soundtrack of this aging mortar, on the border of a red line trying to define the block into a pine box, but we keep resurrecting in the ruins, blooming out the sidewalks to remind y'all where God walked. Did you know? My aunt prayed over this room. The originator of a safe space kept us warm in the embrace of its beams through every storm and imploded dream. We were held together at its seams, and it seems our untold stories are now stuttering at its threshold. Can't escape the boarded doors and windows until the wind blows and we are hit with that priceless scent of our past, and at last we remember we are not lifeless, but ripened and ready for a harvest. We are prepared to be nourished. There is something healing about rebuilding ceilings in a city whose sky is collapsing, patching up its wounded woodworks to rebirth its smile, to stretch for miles down North Avenue, out the mouth of Green Mount and through to the heavens. There is a blessing in beginning again, but only when it begins within. This work has no worth without the people, and we won't be displaced because we are this place. We are the heart and lung that breathe life into Baltimore, with roots sprouting from the soles of our feet, pouring out of our palms, wrapping our arms around the block, like ivy embracing an abandoned row home, turning the forgotten into the flourished. We are the seed and the soil, the branch between west and east, like ancestor and child planting a legacy to blossom through the years, watering ourselves with our own sweat and tears, feeding on the light of our laughter no matter the climate. Still, we bloom, showing each other how to breathe, how to be an undying, everlasting community.
Hi. Hello. My name's Alana Nicole Davis. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah. That was amazing, wasn't it? Yeah. Welcome to Baltimore. Yeah. Some of you probably live here, but many of you are probably coming from other places. So could we shout out some of the places that you're coming in from? What's up, New York? Hi, California. Philly. Did somebody say Liverpool? My goodness. Welcome to Baltimore. Where else? Canada. Spain. Florida. Anybody from Baltimore? Let's go. This is the 4th International Placemaking Week. Shout out to Project for Public Spaces and Neighborhood Design Center, your local co-host. Give it up for them. Yeah. The folks you heard in that opening were Nia June, who's been a friend of mine for some years. She's a poet, a storyteller, a filmmaker in Baltimore, and Troy Long. They did that piece just for us. And that was just a snippet of the sort of spirit. I love to say that Baltimore is a spirit. It's something that you feel, it's all around you, it's all encompassing. She's so charming. And I'm so excited to have you here with us this week. The folks who are behind all of this. This is the first time it's happening in 5 years because a public emergency has shown us that nothing like quality place means more at a time like this, right? So I'm so excited that you guys are here on Micah's campus. They're hosting us, but we won't be here all week. You'll be all throughout Baltimore. There's so many opportunities to get to see her. There's so many opportunities to understand what Charm City brings and what she holds and all the placemakers and placekeepers that are here in Baltimore. You'll learn more about that as the week goes on. So hopefully you got on Sketch, right? And you've been dotting the what do you call them? The programs, the workshops, the mobile workshops, so that you can go to them throughout the week. I'm excited for some of the mobile workshops. I know you've signed up for some, right? Clap for yourselves for doing that ahead of time, okay? I'm so excited to be here, and I know you are too. There are so many amazing people that we have lined up for you today. Yeah, including my team. Shout out to some of the folks from the mayor's office who are in the audience from the innovation team. So excited to see you guys. I'll come over here, give you guys some love. Where are you coming from? Okay, Indiana house, okay, all right, I love that. So next up, we're going to hear from some of the folks who have been behind the scenes planning this. It's been a long week for them. I saw them yesterday bringing in tote bags and carrying in waters. Does anyone plan events back where they're from? Okay, so just give them a hug. If they'll allow it when you see them. When you see Jennifer Gould and you see Nate Storing, who are joining me now, so you can start clapping for them. Maybe a fist bump. I'll see you in a bit.
Thank you, Alana.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Yeah, thank
Hi,
you.
Nate.
All right, excellent. Well, hey, welcome to the 4th International Placemaking Week. So glad to have you all here. My name is Nate Storing. I'm one of 2 co-executive directors at Project for Public Spaces, and we're a national nonprofit organization that's dedicated to creating a world of community-powered public spaces, and of course we're also the producer of this event.
Good morning, Baltimore. I'm Jen Gould. I'm the director of the Neighborhood Design Center, which is Maryland's nonprofit community design center. We've been around since 1968, but today we're the co-host of this event.
Awesome. And yeah, we're thrilled to have over 600 participants representing 200 cities around the world at this conference today.
One more clap for Baltimoreans in the room. We definitely know how to show up and show out, so we're really excited to spend time with you. And thank you for all the effort you made to get here today. We really do see you. We know what it takes to walk away from your jobs, your families, your homes, to travel a long distance. And so we're so excited you made the effort.
Yeah, and as we all know in this room, meeting face-to-face really matters, right? There are lots of ways that we can learn these days online and so on, but moments like these are really important times to build those deep relationships with each other, to dig into more complex issues, and also just find that inspiration so we can all go back home after this is over and feel like we're ready to keep doing the work. But before we jump into the week ahead, I'd love to just briefly tell you a little bit more about Project for Public Spaces. So as I said, we're a national design and planning nonprofit, and next year we're going to be celebrating our 50th anniversary. So very, very excited about that. Okay. Awesome. And the thing that excites me most about our mission at Project for Public Spaces is that public space really touches all of the important issues that we're facing as a society today, because it's where we live our lives, right? It touches our lives in so many different ways. Public space is, where we gather in protest, where we gather in celebration. It's the lifeline for our mental health during a pandemic. It's where we commute to work and school and back home again, for better or worse. It's the glue that holds together our main streets, our neighborhoods, and our downtowns. It's where a lot of violence happens in our communities, right? But also where we spend quality time with our family and our friends. And as we all know, successfully transforming and stewarding those public spaces in collaboration with community is often really messy, right? It's political, it's underfunded, it's technically challenging, hard to measure, and it's absolutely magical when you get it right. And that joyful tension is really what placemaking is all about to me. So at PPS, we support the people and organizations behind those great public spaces through two main programs. Placemaking, which I think you're all familiar with, but we're all about advancing a community-led approach to improving public space. And then Market Cities, which focuses on strengthening market networks of all kinds, which in my opinion are often some of the most impactful public places in our communities, right? And in both of these programs, we use 4 different strategies to achieve our mission. Projects, on-the-ground projects. We provide planning, design, and community engagement support to reimagine parks, streets, markets, empty lots all across North America, hand in hand with the people who use those spaces every day. Partnerships. We partner with grant makers to combine implementation funding with design and placemaking support and capacity building for grantees to help them transform and care for those public spaces. Education. We offer training courses, peer learning networks, and other online resources to help others learn how to do this work from our experience and from each other. And then, of course, conferences, right? Like our International Public Markets Conference, which we held in Toronto last year, and I believe the local co-host is here, so shout out to you, Marina. And of course, this conference, the International Placemaking Week Conference, and I cannot believe that it's been 5 years since the last event. That's truly wild. And if any of these initiatives sound like something that you really need in your community, I really would encourage you to just come and talk to one of our staff. We're all here at the conference. We'll be participating, we'll be helping out. You can recognize us because we all have this little blue pin right here that says Project for Public Spaces. So please chat us up, we'd love to talk to you. Now this year, for this event, we had a kind of outstanding response to this event, right? We had over 300 applications to the call for speakers. And those of you who were selected, you're all here in the room, so congratulations. Our registration completely sold out, and you can just look around this room right now. It is packed. We have even more people joining us online via live stream. And we've seen so much generosity from our sponsors and partners. And of course, we could not have brought this all together without our intrepid local co-host, the Neighborhood Design Center, as well as our local co-producer, The Medicine Show, who's helping put on this session right now in particular.
Thanks, Nate. Can I just say how fun this conference is going to be? Like any great gathering, we're going to start and end with fabulous parties. Tonight we'll be celebrating in the Bromo Arts District. Be sure to say hi to my mayor, Brandon Scott, or ask the Downtown Partnership about this crazy tower celebrating antacids. Friday, we'll be strolling through the Station North Arts District to see some of NDC's partner projects before enjoying more libations and more music with Rufus Roundtree. And in between, so much show and tell, playtime, field trips. And if the conference content weren't enough, the mayor's team is also hosting an incredible outdoor dance party tomorrow night with globally renowned artists placemaking in real time back in the Bromo district. And over the next few days, you're going to get a heaping taste of Baltimore. Incredible history of Black leadership from history past, Frederick Douglass, to Thurgood Marshall, to the people you'll hear from today and in the days to come. Black creativity that's off the charts, from Billie Holiday to Nia and Troy, to the artists you'll see at work in every nook and cranny across our neighborhoods. And a little nod to our patron saint, John Waters, the Pope of Trash. Trash, treasure, trash, treasure. In Baltimore, it's one and the same. You'll see some of Baltimore's challenges as well. Joy, suffering, present in ample measure across the city. What did we do to create tens of thousands of empty buildings? Why are we struggling with so much poverty and addiction? Can we overcome? These are critical questions, and they're ones Baltimoreans do not shy away from talking about. So if you see Baltimore on the name tag, please ask us questions about what you're seeing in our city. There are also the challenges that we're seeing at the Neighborhood Design Center. We do design services for community-initiated projects, over 4,000 of them since we were founded, of all sorts, everything from a sign for your community garden all the way up to your community master plan. But some of our favorites are really, and the most rewarding, are placemaking. And why are these projects so satisfying? Because placemaking takes the edict to love thy neighbor as thyself, to heart and to soul. Here it is. I always get really teary on stage. I don't know why. The incredible thing about placemaking is that it carves out space in our cities and towns for us to come to our senses and then connect. Our senses come alive when we have safe refuge to run and play, or sit and rest, to look at each other and ourselves, to feel the sun or shade or breeze or see the water, maybe taste something delicious and refreshing. And then we're available to ourselves, to our children, to our family, to our partners, to find a new person to be a part of your life for a moment or a lifetime. And when that happens, we can also make space to support strangers or allow strangers to care for us. To see that every living being on this planet is our neighbor, is ourself. In that spirit, I look forward to meeting each and every one of you in the days to come. NDCers will be wearing badges like this one, or t-shirts. We'll be on your tours. We'll be at the door. So please stop and have a word. We'd love to chat and get to know you. And then we go to some of our supporters. Our partnership with these supporters has been hand in glove for the last year. This has not just been financial support, both for the program and for the team, but like a real relationship making this thing come to fruition. City of Baltimore has been here for us in an unprecedented way. Every piece of this has been in partnership with City of Baltimore, Office of the Mayor, seed funders that have allowed for NDC to be present through this work, including T. Rowe Price and Goldsecker. The State of Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development has been with us all across the days, providing operating and platinum sponsorship level support.
Yes, our deepest gratitude to all of our sponsors. Your support not only allows us to actually put on this event, but it also makes it more accessible by allowing us to offer 67 scholarships to help more people participate in this conference today. And I'd also like to extend a special thanks to our capacity building sponsors, General Motors, the Walton Family Foundation, and Niantic, who helped support our community placemaking grant recipients to actually join us at this conference here in Baltimore. And to our network partner, Placemaking X, sorry about that, next slide, who helped spread the word, right, to global public space leaders everywhere. Finally, many of our activities throughout the week are in support of the Center for Disease Control's Active People, Healthy Nation campaign. If you haven't heard of it, this is a national initiative to help 27 million Americans become more physically active by 2027. And I encourage you to check out their awesome online resources to learn more about how you can get involved in that campaign. And that's it. So thanks again for being here, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Welcome, neighbors.
Hello? Not this one? Use this one? They will? They did turn it on. I'm back. Hey guys, it's Alana. Did you meet me before? Okay, some of you may have came in late, because I'm like that. Conference weeks, call time of 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, I might still be in the hotel room. You don't know. I'm here by the grace of God, just letting you know. So I just had a chat with some of the folks who are about to come up on stage. Lisa Snowden-McCrae, who's the founder and editor-in-chief of Baltimore Beat, and Lester Spence, who told me to tell you he's not a professor, but he is. And he's from Detroit. I asked him, would he eat a snowball or a crab? And he said, is that really a question? Lisa said, I would have a snowball, because she hasn't had one this week. Raise your hand if you've ever had a snowball. Raise your hand if you've ever had one in Baltimore. So I've got to take a couple people to Quality Snowball in Hamden. We'll be leaving right after this session. Don't do that. That's not on the schedule. Please stay with Sketch. Anyway, next up is going to be Lisa Snowden-McCrae and Lester Spence. Clap it up for them.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Lester Spence, and happy birthday, Lester Spence.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
To give a little more context for this conversation, I'll just say my name is Lisa Snowden. I'm the editor of Baltimore Beat, which is a free bi-weekly paper here in Baltimore City. We are focused on providing news for everybody, with the front of our mind always on folks without access and the fact that Baltimore is a 60% Black community. Lester, can you talk a little bit, maybe just a quick nugget about what you would say that you do?
I study the political production of inequality. So if I had to boil down what I do. And over the last 15 to 20 years, what I've really been interested in is the hollowing out of the public, right? So this meeting, this gathering is really important because it speaks to the core of what I do and actually kind of why I do it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. Neither of us are Baltimore natives. I am actually from Annapolis, not too far from here, and you're from Detroit area. I thought that we would start off talking a little bit about why specifically Baltimore. Why is Baltimore the place that we've chosen to do our work?
So in my case, it was really that Baltimore chose me. So I had my first job was in St. Louis, and I was looking for a postdoc, and I was really hoping to get home to turn my dissertation into a book. But to make a long story short, it ended up being Baltimore. And then when I got here, it didn't take long for me to realize that Baltimore, Detroit are basically sister cities. You know, you take everything that's Baltimore and you just happen to put it in the Midwest, it would be in Detroit. It would be Detroit. You put Detroit, you take Detroit and plop it and put it on the East Coast, it would be Baltimore. And actually, when I talk about them that way, I add a third city, it's Oakland. It's like they're cities that have strong working class traditions. They're cities that have strong Black communities, and they're cities in which the future was created in really important ways, both politically speaking, but then also as far as kind of economically and socially, in good and bad ways.
For me, I get a lot of joy out of reporting about Baltimore. I started working here as a journalist when I graduated from Towson, which is Baltimore County. Got a job here in the city and stayed. And what I saw was a lack of Black journalists, a lack of people that wanted to tell stories in Baltimore because they wanted to stay in Baltimore.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not stopping anybody's hustle, but sometimes Baltimore journalists can see Baltimore as a drop off on their way to like New York or DC even. And so that reflects in the reporting that you do or the mark that you want to make in the city. And the beat is kind of the outgrowth of me saying, I want to be here and be intentional about writing about Baltimore. And also, it's ridiculous that there's so few Black journalists in a city of so many brilliant Black storytellers, and making it so that there can be more space for those people.
Now, one of the things as I think about that hollowing out of the public, one of the things that's been hollowed out is journalism and is a newspaper, right? So the Baltimore Sun actually changed hands and actually is now run by basically a fascist. That actually has an effect on the news, and that has an effect on how we think about the spaces we're in. Why journalism for you?
I really just love storytelling. Like I love being able to highlight things that nobody else is looking at. I also like the rigors of journalism, because journalism can be an idea that I start off with, but I might be wrong. Like we just did a few issues back, a youth voter guide. And that started off with the premise of me saying, I've been reporting on elections for a long time. I've been in the city working for about 20 years. And there's lots of conversations about Black young people, and you know how terrible they are and where they need to be and how funds need to be spent getting them jobs, getting them off the corners where they're squeegeeing. But nobody's talking to them. Like they're not invited to these conversations. That was the idea that I had. But then it went through the rigors of like, okay, let's actually talk to young people. Let's also send out surveys to candidates and have them tell us, you know, respond to some questions about young people. To me, some candidates gave great responses. Our current mayor didn't even respond to the survey. Sheila Dixon, who was another person who was kind of one of our contenders to be mayor, didn't even respond to the survey. A great deal of incumbents didn't respond to that survey. That to me is journalism, because that documents the fact that it wasn't just the idea that I had, but there was facts to back it up. And I like the idea of taking something and then putting it through and see if it actually happens and seeing if it's actually true.
That rigor concept is really important. So I was on a panel a couple of days ago, virtually, with folks in Georgetown thinking about political science. And I was on there with a dear friend of mine, Nadia. She's a professor in Georgetown. And we were talking about the struggle of political science today. And what I said to the group of kids we were talking to, like, we're in a moment where you've got some people looking at an elephant and they're studying the trunk and they're studying the ear and some are studying the tail. All of them are trying to capture the elephant, but they're trying to capture different elements, right? But then you've got people who are basically studying raccoons, but telling people it's elephants, right? So one of the things that rigor and discipline does is it forces us to consistently come back to what we think is true and then figure out whether we're right or what elements we're right about and then articulate that in a different way. But then the value of doing that in the public is it creates a certain sensibility for what the world is, and then also, given the work you do, also what it's supposed to be, right?
I think a lot about who's invited to the conversations. And so by having a free paper, that's not, you don't have to pay a paywall, you don't have to stop and turn your TV on and you know, buy cable. I want to make it so that more people are invited to these conversations. And while this stuff is being kind of worked out, there's more people having a say.
That's right. So when I was on the way here, my car took me a different way. So I've got this camera up. I'm like a serious amateur photographer, been for 20 years. And it takes me this weird way. I'm like, why the hell did the car take me this way? I am driving and I'm just looking at the map, right? And I stop and I see this park that I'd never seen before. And it's a normal park, but it has like a basketball rim on one side and then it has a tennis court on the other. The basketball rim has been taken down. Right? and the tennis court is fine, right? Now that for me really set me up for what I think our struggle is, right? Because if you think about who's led in the conversation and who isn't, one way you could think about it is like the people who would play on that basketball court. If you close your eyes, you know exactly who that population is. That's one population that lives here. And then if you think about the people that want to use the tennis court, right? You close your eyes, you've got another population. One population is consistently led into the conversation, and the other population isn't. One population is consistently talked about, while the other population isn't and is given voice. Now that's one narrative, that's one story that's really important to tell. But then if you scan out, the park itself was just okay. So it wasn't a dope park. The park itself had kind of had resources taken from it. So you could tell you could tell that story, but what you have to fold in is the larger story of how the park's been kind of hollowed out in a way. Right?
Is there any place
No, go ahead. I'll bring it back. Go on.
I guess maybe this answers my question, though. Is that, would you say, my question was going to be, is there any place in the city that specifically means Baltimore to you, either personally or the illustration of the work that you do? But I feel like maybe that's...
Yeah, yep. So there are a lot of us, after the uprising, asked to talk about Baltimore in the wake of the uprising, right? And for me, there was one stat that I would consistently articulate, and this is still true. Baltimore spends between $500 and $600 million on policing every year, and they spend about 35 on Parks and Rec, right? In 1990, they spent $145 million on policing, and in 1990, they spent about $35 million on Parks and Rec, right? Like that's it. Now, one solution that sometimes we articulate in spaces like this is, wow, we can create a public-private partnership to actually fill that gap. And we have, Parks and People is dope. They do fill that gap. But there's still a political dynamic where the principle that's articulated with that gap is that the most important thing that Baltimore can do as far as serving the public is to police. That's the most important thing.
And to get back to, bring the journalism part in that is like, I don't think that there are enough journalists in the city that are questioning why. I think that there are journalists that kind of, they do the ride-alongs, they do reporting about, whatever the police say, they'll report that. Mm-hmm. But there's not the space of like, why are we doing that? What else could we be spending the money on?
Yes.
I think even there's a way that that police can be kind of soft launched because, every year we have the youth curfews, and those have been proven not to work in Baltimore and in other places. But now it's not so much the emphasis reporting on the youth curfews, it's the events that will happen and then wrap up in time for y'all to get in the house. Yeah. But there's not a conversation about like, well, why can't young people be in the streets? Like, and how are are there young people in Roland Park, which for those of you who are not from Baltimore is a wealthier, wider area of the city. Are they gonna be, having people telling them to get home? Yeah. Or is it just gonna be on North Avenue?
Right? And what that does is, and I was thinking about the poet, Nia, the poet who just left, and I was thinking of, there's this way. So when you're 55, everybody basically is young. So sometimes we're in these spaces like, oh my God, look, the children of the future. What's the song? Teach them well and let them lead the way. Show them all the beauty they possess inside. And I do think about it like that. I think about that them as a certain type of human resource that we're squandering, right? I think about that, about how every time we objectify the squeegee boy, every time we objectify the bike, the 12 o'clock boys, the boys who are riding their bike, we actually lose something. but we're not talking enough about what we lose when we create a dynamic where there's the they and then there's the us, right? Because what happens in that moment is that it naturally leads to a dynamic where you're turning to policing, where you're hollowing out schools, where every time you've got a choice between private and public, simplifying, you're choosing private, right? Because you don't want the squeegee kid anywhere near you. You don't want the 12 o'clock boy near you. They actually constitute a signal threat, right? And that's what if I figure I've got a few more decades at this if I'm lucky, but that's the thing I'll be fighting until my last breath.
I also think about how we think about young people as they're the kind of this category of a young person until they reach 18, and then they're, I guess, a functional member of society. They're members of society the whole time.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, it's complicated. Like my youngest son, he's 20. Yeah, Dad, I'm a grown-ass man now. Like, okay, you don't pay the bills. You barely clean up your room. You spend more time making beats than you do reading books. But yeah, you're a grown-ass man. There is that. But at the same time, if you think about not just the kids here, but the kids all over the world, it's like the kids who are actually creating the impetus for change. So we've got one of the youngest mayors in the country, and I think we've got now, as a result of the last election, perhaps one of the most progressive city councils, I think, right? I talk about the uprising. The uprising was, in a way, a catalyst, but the reason the uprising generated the politics it did was because of political organizing that happened before, where people were reimagining what politics was, how the public functioned, right? If you look at the folks who were doing the most important work, those folk were either kids in the real sense. Here, I'm talking about folks involved with the Algebra Project, the Baltimore Algebra Project, or they were kids in that they were just on the other side of 20. So here I'm talking about organizers involved with Leaders of Beautiful Struggle, folks who come out of urban policy debate, and a range of other organizations. So I think about what would have happened had in those leading up moments to the uprising, we basically, stiff-armed those young organizers. Like we'd be in a very different political place at Baltimore right now.
We talked on the phone a couple weeks ago. You were on the campus of Johns Hopkins University.
I was.
And y'all were trying to figure out what to do with all the stuff because you were unpacking, the encampment.
Oh, yeah.
That had settled there.
Yeah, that's right.
To highlight what was happening in Gaza.
Yeah.
Do you think that that's kind of the political organizing that you're talking about? Like, with young people galvanizing to, really highlight change? Like, do you think that's similar to what happened with the uprising and the things that happened after Freddie Gray's death?
Yeah, so if you go back, if you go back to Occupy, when the occupation started in the United States, and then the Black Lives Matter, you could draw a straight line between Occupy and Black Lives Matter to the encampment, both in the tactics. But then if you think about the signal issues that we've been dealing with basically wealth extraction, that's Occupy Wall Street. We've been dealing with state violence, that's Black Lives Matter. And now we've been dealing with basically, to simplify, kind of international settler colonialism. Right, and that's Gaza, right, and then and kind of war socialism, and that's people organizing against Gaza. And every time, if I think about, so I went to University of Michigan for undergrad and grad school. I am a product of organizing in '69, in '77, and in '86, '87. The reason I'm at Hopkins is because students at Hopkins fought around the same time period. My job at Washington University in St. Louis, it was students that fought. So what I can say is that I owe my career to kids who fought for the public, but then in a broad way, we think about how our common senses change. We talk about inequality for the first time ever after Occupy Wall Street. We start to take policing seriously for the first time after Black Lives Matter. It's been kids really, really leading the way. But they've been putting their bodies on the line. And then in many cases, they've also been doing like the heavy ideational work, the heavy idea generating work.
What do you think is next? I just think, I know you mentioned our progressive city council, and me being the cynical journalist that I am, I said, I remember the last phase of these folks. People were writing the same thing about the millennials, they were gonna save us. But the system is always going to also keep changing to meet whatever challenge. Yeah, so do you know, like, do you think about what the next phase could be?
Yeah. So people talk about, so one of the ideas that I think journalism gets wrong, even when it's right, is we've been talking about political polarization, right? Like, how many of y'all read about political polarization or have that in your mind as you think about the election? And we're talking about domestic stuff, but this is an international dynamic. It's not political polarization. It's political radicalization, right? There's a difference, right? So when you've got a moment where you've got a right-wing fascist move, right? We've got a former president that was just found guilty of the hush money stuff, but he participated in an insurrection, and he actually, for the first time, the transfer of power didn't happen in the United States without violence. Now that's important, right? That's really, really important. So we're in a war against the forces of right-wing radicalization in the wake of climate change. So I think we're increasingly presented with a moment where we're really gonna have to make a choice, and 5 minutes left. Wow, this is dope. This is so. I told them, I want to let you know that they originally wanted to give us like 15 minutes. I'm like, come on, are you kidding me? She could talk alone for like an hour.
I don't want to.
So we're really stuck with a choice. We're stuck with a choice between radicalization that will change the United States and the world in ways in which there's nobody in this room, in the United States case, was alive to even understand how horrific that would be. Or we can double down and create the seeds for a new world. And there's not gonna be a middle ground. There isn't gonna be a middle. You're gonna have to make a choice one way or the other. That's it.
Okay, last thing, because we got less than 5 minutes. These folks are going to be traveling all over the city and doing different things. What is one thing you want them to hold in their head while they're experiencing Baltimore?
So what I want you to think about is doubling down on politics. You're going to be seeing a number. You're going to be experiencing a number of challenging conversations, some dope stuff too. You're going to be experiencing all the best of what Baltimore has to offer and some of the more complicated things. What I want you all to think about is, what role does politics play in the creation of this stuff? What role does politics play in the generation of these ideas? If you're in a bar and you've got a dope-ass mezcal cocktail, like, what role did the state and regulations play in creating this space? If you're talking about public-private partnerships, what role does politics play? I really want us to double down on politics, because I think empirically studying politics is gonna give us a better sense of what's true and what's right. And I think doubling down on politics is gonna give us the ability to forge new ideas, forge new institutions, and to carve out kind of shared identities that can create a new world. That's what I would say.
So funny, because I had my own answer, and it's basically yours, but in a different way, which is think about who's here, who's not, and why.
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
It was so good talking to you, Lester.
This is the beginning. This is the beginning.
Yes. Thank you so much, everybody.
Tell Amani I said hi. That's his daughter, Amani. She's not back there. She's somewhere else. Anyway, hi. How are you? You having fun? Aren't they funny? The really great thing about Baltimore is, like, I get to see these people, like, every week. I know their kids. I saw Lisa Snowden McCrae on my way to the nail salon. I go to get my nails done on Greenmount. Don't they look good? These are, do any of the ladies in the audience know what standing pants are? The kind of pants you can only wear standing? I want you to know, I didn't drive here in these. I didn't drive here in these at all. I drove here in a very soft Old Navy tangerine skirt. So if you see me for the rest of the day, we're at the party tonight with a tangerine skirt on. No, it's because the pants either split or I just decided to put the skirt back on. Anyway, the next person coming up is the Secretary for the State of Maryland's Department of Housing and Community Development. His name is Jake Day. And he told me that one of his favorite places is Lexington Market. Is Jamal McCord from Lexington Market in the audience? Hi, Jamal! He's the GM for Lexington Market. Jake Day said that he loves to go to Park's Fried Chicken. I do too, which is why I'm in standing pants. But he has two girls, just like I do, two daughters. He lives on the Eastern Shore, and he comes here in peace. Everybody clap it up for Jake Day.
Well, good morning. Good morning. I don't think I've ever had an introduction end with, and he comes here in peace. I love that. I love that. And I do, of course. Well, good morning. My name is Jake Day. I'm the Secretary of Housing and Community Development for the state of Maryland. I work for an incredible governor, Wes Moore. For those of you not from Maryland, if you don't know him, you will know him one day. So our state and this city are no doubt delighted to play host to the 4th International Placemaking Week conference. And I'm so proud that our agency gets to serve as a platinum sponsor for this event. And as a former architecture and urban design student, I spend much of my day, every day, lusting after that history and longing for the design studio where I got to participate in, crafting wonderful ideas and envisioning a bright future and then getting to draw it and model it. And I don't get to do that very much anymore. So just to be in the room with you, with designers, with placemakers, is thrilling for me. I'm also especially pleased that this conference is taking place here in Baltimore. Mayor Scott and I have been friends for a long time through our work in the Maryland Municipal League or the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And I've got to see his work. I served for about 10 years as a local government official, as a mayor and as a council president before that of my hometown. And as the incomparable Mayor Joe Riley from Charleston, South Carolina would call us, we were the chief urban designers of our cities. That doesn't necessarily mean we all had the skill set, the appropriate skill set. And not that I did either, just because I went to school for it. But what it meant was we have a responsibility to take care of the places and spaces and details of our cities. So today I join you as Maryland's Secretary of Housing. I don't know if that makes me Maryland's Chief Urban Designer. I'd like that, title. But let's you and I start the rumor that that's my other title, okay? Look, we've had a long and productive partnership at DHCD with the city of Baltimore. And so it's been wonderful to see that strengthen over recent years. One of our most successful shared initiatives is something called Project Core, or Creating Opportunities for Revitalization and Equity. It's been truly transformative, and it has revitalized, it has removed and stabilized over 6,000 vacant units in this city, vacant building units in this city. Project Core resources have supported a variety of activities that have made some really incredible changes to neighborhoods all over the city. On a basic level, Project Core provides the funds to clear and prepare spaces for redevelopment, which is often supported by additional state resources, including the Baltimore Regional Neighborhoods Initiative, or BERNI. We like our acronyms, and we like when our acronyms turn into fun names. So sometimes acronyms can be fun. But what's really exciting is that Project Core is about to undergo a massive transformation. This last legislative session, we received authorization for additional funds for Project Core, and there is now a mandated appropriation for years to come, in perpetuity for now, but there is a mandated appropriation of $50 million per year to go to address vacancy in Baltimore City. Add to that, and by the way, we need it, there's 13,000 vacant building VBNs left in the city, but add to that additional appropriations over $24 million for revitalization redevelopment dollars. Now, what I want to say is that there is good reason to be wary of any announcement of additional funds that government is putting into a place, right? We've seen what government has built. And if there is any reticence, whether that's in communities with NIMBYism, or whether that's among cities themselves and communities themselves, about what government says we're going to come do in your town, what we're going to build, it's because we've earned that reputation, right? We have earned that history from building a lot of garbage for a very long time. I think we can acknowledge that, right? I think we can admit that to ourselves. But there is a reason why we have set the values of our agency, nested, of course, within the values of the Moore Miller administration, to include two very important things: that we will build just communities and we will build lovable places. So why just communities? Well, because the destruction that we visited, and I mean we collectively, government, private sector, et cetera, that we visited upon communities, largely on black neighborhoods in this country, and very much so in this state, we did deliberately. And it's going to take deliberate counteraction to undo that. And secondly, because why lovable places? Because we recognize that whether it's $50 million or $100 million or whatever it is, there will never be enough public resources to achieve all of the aims that we have for repairing our communities. There will never be enough public dollars. So we better be able to convince people to vote with their feet and to show up, and we better be able to attract private investment. And I think when we build places that people can have passion for and excitement for and want to occupy, whether it's for commerce, whether it's for demonstration, whether it's to share ideas, whether it's to share a community, whether it's to buy some Hunt's honey at the farmer's market, like whatever it is, let's build places where people want to be there, yes? And so look, this isn't just about vision or values. This is about action. So, as I said, we've got some additional resources to work with in the state of Maryland. We also, this year, passed the Just Communities Act, a first of its kind in the nation, that will be a geographic focus for reconcentrating resources into neighborhoods where redlining, urban highway construction, and urban renewal dollars that robbed wealth, robbed ownership, and robbed community from black and brown families will be concentrated resources to do repair work with those communities. So I'm really proud of that achievement. Secondly, the Maryland General Assembly passed the governor's legislative housing package this year, a transformational set of bills, but not least of which, I want to point out, guarantees that we will reinvest resources in a dense way in neighborhoods. We will incentivize density in the very neighborhoods that need reinvestment. We won't subsidize sprawl. We won't subsidize disinvestment of our core places like Baltimore City or even my hometown of Salisbury, but rather we will reinvest and we will make it easier to build in those places. So I'm really proud of the accomplishments that our department is making. And for me, this moment, this conference, is not just an opportunity to say, we're going to share with each other best practices from around the country. We're going to share what we're doing in Maryland and in Baltimore, and we're going to learn from one another. But it's an opportunity to let you know, while you're here in this city, you're going to get to see and hear about great work that's happening in a place that has not always received the investment and care and love that it deserves. It's getting it now. It's going to get it into the future. And I am so glad I get to say, welcome to Baltimore. On behalf of Governor Moore, welcome to Maryland. We're glad you're here. I hope it's a memorable visit. And I hope you find some lovable places. And I hope you see glimmers of justice in this city. Thank you so much.
Clap it up for Secretary Day. You can clap it up again for him. Did he mention the farmer's market? Yeah. We talked a little bit about that. I love a farmer's market, don't you? Every Saturday and Sunday. Sunday under the JFX, Saturday in Waverly, right? I love that farmer's market. We've got another conversation coming up for you. I hope you're continuing to enjoy yourself. I'm going to read from my phone this time because contrary to popular belief, millennials are not 13. We're cruising toward 40. And so just FYI, that's what I'm looking at. I'm not texting my boyfriend. The next conversation is community placemaking through the arts. I just had a conversation with the amazing Janine Whitfield backstage. She's the director of the Harbor Place Experience. Tanya Miller Hall, who's the Senior Advisor of Arts and Culture for the City of Baltimore, shout out to the Mayor's Office, and Jazz Ehrenberg, who's a community artist whose murals you'll see covering Station North when we're there on Thursday, right, Jennifer? Yep. We'll be all up and through Station North on Thursday, so I want everybody to give a warm welcome to those three amazing women, okay? Right now. Y'all can come out.
I'm gonna sit here. Hello, everyone. Hello. They've already said welcome to Baltimore, but I'll say it again, welcome to Baltimore. I am Tanya Miller Hall. I am the Senior Advisor for Arts and Culture for the Mayor's Office. I like to say I've only been in this role for about 1.5 years. There has not been an arts and culture advisor at the mayor's office since 1999. So shout out to our mayor for leaning into the arts. So I just want to add that. I want to introduce Janine Whitfield. Janine is the Director of Experience at the Inner Harbor. She's newly appointed 2 weeks in. You gotta use the microphone. She is the former president and CEO of the Heidelberg Project in Detroit, Michigan. Janine led the Heidelberg Project for nearly 3 decades, transforming it into a globally recognized art environment. Founded by Tyree Guyton, who is also her husband and an artist, the project is known for its innovative use of urban spaces and recycled materials to create dynamic art environments. It's received numerous awards and recognition, and we're going to talk about that later. She's also a member of the Mayor's Arts and Culture Advisory Committee. Jazz, I'm just totally went blank. I had a brain fart. Okay, Jazz Ehrenberg is a community artist and muralist. She is Latina. Her work is she's known for her vibrant murals that engage local communities. She paints to bridge social economic gaps in Baltimore, focused on ideas that bring us together in joy. Welcome. And also a MICA alum, and also a commissioner and part of the Baltimore City Public Arts Commission. Okay, I'm gonna get through this. Okay, we're just gonna talk a little bit about the future, Baltimore, the vision for Baltimore's future through placemaking. Considering the significance of public spaces and communities that we engage in, how do you see these spaces evolving to better serve and reflect the needs of the communities?
Well, that's a very broad question, but I will say that it's really, from my perspective, and I should just back up a little bit and say, you know, it's funny because my actual background in education is banking and finance. Isn't that funny? I took a wrong turn down that street nearly 30 years ago, Heidelberg in Detroit, and it changed my life. And what it did was it helped me to understand, first of all, the importance and the relevance of people and humanity. And the idea of being outdoors is something very profound about that, and especially when you can create And I want y'all to think about this word. When you can create a spectacle of excellence, that is really getting us to think a little bit more about, the unsuspecting or the unassuming, and not to be afraid to do something different, because different is what moves us forward as opposed to repeating the same things. And I believe that public spaces in an outdoor setting in 2024 is going to be very powerful and very dynamic now. But we have to start thinking more about the power of humanity to do that.
For me, hey y'all, I don't drive, so it makes what I do really difficult, but it also means that my focus is a lot more on designing places for people. And my future Baltimore would definitely have an entirely connected bike route, and thank you, a red line potentially, and just accessible ways that our community can be a lot more connected. There are, people say Baltimore is a city of neighborhoods, and that is very true. They're all very different, but it can be difficult to get from one to another. So connecting it by literally just having people be able to walk or bike or get there via public transit would be a real dream. Okay.
So let's talk about the impact of that. So your art, your mural projects are very vibrant, transformative. We recently, I'm gonna plug this, but we recently, last year, we took over a former gas station that was now an auto repair shop, and now it's this beautiful mural project. And it was a sad space. So talk to us about, or talk to the audience about how that and how all of your murals really impact community and really impact the dynamic of the community and civic pride.
Well, I think I typically start with the community, right? With people who are willing to meet with me, willing to talk to me. There hasn't been a project where I've come to it and I'm like, this is my dream, this is what I want to paint, this is what I'm going to paint. It's a lot more about the conversations that I have with people who will be seeing it every day. And it's understanding that I've been given this sort of authority to decide how to impact people's daily. And so understanding that I have the power to share that with the people that will be impacted by it every day. And so I typically always start with those community conversations. Now, I will say, caveat, right, talking about politics, community associations are not always made up of the entire demographic of the neighborhood that I would like to be representing with my work. So a lot of times there's much more robust community engagement that has to happen. But I think when you work with a community to make a project as opposed to you work on a project in a community, the way that it's going to be maintained, the way that it's going to be respected, the way that it ignites this new ownership in communities is really why I do what I do. Like, yes, it's great that like it looks awesome at the end, but I think there's a lot of a stronger impact in the social aspect of what I do.
So tossing it over to you in the Heidelberg Project, and that really transformed that community. Can you talk a little bit about how the Heidelberg Project began and the impact, the sustainable impact that it's had on that community?
Yeah, the Heidelberg Project started in 1986. It's going to be celebrating its 40th anniversary in 2026. Thank you. It's hard to believe that it's probably the longest running art installation and probably one of the largest in the country. But the whole idea was that the artist who grew up on Heidelberg Street watched the decline of his neighborhood. And, the whole typical response is to board up, but that never stopped the energy of what was taking place, which was a lot of drugs and petty theft. So he decided that he was going to transform one house by using the same discards of the community that was littering the community. And the concept became, what happens if you pick these things up, dust them off, give them color, rearrange it? It's literally breathing new life into these things, and that was symbolic of breathing new life into a community. And it became a spectacle of, it wasn't excellence to most people. It was a spectacle of trash. Clean this stuff up. We don't want this shit. I can't believe I said that. But, and that, as was said previously, is part of the whole messiness of making or creating real change and creating real innovation. But one house became two, became three, became four. Before you know it, you've got what I call this ghetto Guggenheim in the heart of an urban community of Detroit. And it began to catch on. It began to catch on. And what you started to see is that people started to take a little bit more pride in their own homes now because you changed the dynamic of that community. And these are the kinds of risks that we're going to have to start taking in 2024 when we start thinking about the ways in which we want to bring new life into our communities. It starts, again, I have to go back to this, I'm going to reiterate it a lot. You don't have a neighborhood if you don't have people. So we have got to really think about the way in which we can evoke something in the human spirit that makes it come alive, and makes people, or almost shocks people into a new way of thinking.
I would attest to that in just a small bit. Last year, we installed a pocket park on a vacant parking lot. And it literally, the neighbors were really engaged on what was happening. We called it Artscape Park. For those who aren't from Baltimore, it's our annual arts festival, but the idea of having something sustainable, not just an arts festival, but having something sustainable to have impact on community was the agenda last year. But the park really transformed, which sits across the street from Jazz's mural project. And so we were able to take over 2 square blocks, and it really has transformed the community and really now have community members caring for those 2 spaces. And so art and public spaces and transforming spaces really does work. And that was really a powerful thing that I had not been prepared for in starting to launch those 2 projects. Let's talk about how public spaces, art, and that sort of really is an economic driver.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
I'm just sorry. I'm excited about that one. I'm really excited about it because, listen, it is such a powerful tool. First of all, Williams College performed an economic impact study on the Heidelberg Project in 2012, I believe, and determined, now keep in mind, Heidelberg was not accepted by its city, and we had been partially torn down twice by the city of Detroit. And so no government funding, no support from any really major foundations initially. And yet we did this economic impact study, Williams College, and they determined that we were contributing like $3.4 million, this is in 2012, to the Detroit area alone, and then $4.2 million to the Wayne County region. And the statement that the representatives from Williams College was that these people are punching way above their weight based in conjunction with or in comparison to our budget, which is something like, it was $800,000. And we literally became the 3rd most visited cultural destination in the city of Detroit. And it was that information, and when you look at what the economic impact is, we're talking about people who are coming to the city to see the Heidelberg Project, but they're spending money in other places. So those were the studies, and they decided to leave the information on their website to track it as the years would go on, and it has doubled. And that's a fact still yet today. And I think just recently, we're starting to catch on, they're starting to catch on in Detroit, that this needs to be now a government-supported initiative. So economic impact is everything behind the arts. It really is.
Fantastic. So we have probably now 3 minutes. So, if we can just sort of wrap with what's in the pipeline or some sort of magical thinking project that you might be working on, if you both want to take that before we wrap.
Sure. So I run a mural festival here in Baltimore called Brush Mural Fest. Thank you. We're in our 2nd year this year. We're very excited to be officially partnering with the city. We'll be installing 10 new murals on the convention center in September. So if you find yourself in our area again in the fall, please come visit.
And as the new director, let me get this straight, y'all. I am the director of the Harbor Place Experience, so that's a brand. I'm gonna have to get these corrected. And the idea is just as the name suggests, what kind of funky, interesting, dynamic, innovative experiences can we create at the harbor? So this is kind of like, and it's a brand new role, so I don't really know, but I'm listening, I'm paying attention, and I think Baltimore is the best place for this to happen, and I'm very excited, and I'm glad to be here too.
And I'm going to close with, tomorrow, I am leading Art After Dark from 7 to 11 p.m., live art activation, dance, DJ, food trucks on Lexington Avenue between Howard and Park. That's my shameful plug, so hopefully I will see you all there tomorrow evening.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you
all.
guys.
We are at our keynote. We're getting ready to introduce our keynote speaker. Her name is Brittany Young. I'm also going to pull my phone out to read her bio. And I forgot to tell you that Tanya Miller Hall said that her favorite place in Baltimore are the art districts. So, very cool. Let me pull it up. I've known Brittany since 2016. It's been a long time. Brittany is a retired engineer, educator, professor, and Baltimore native. She has programmed nuclear plants, developed medical devices, planned satellite explorations, but finds the most satisfaction in her roles in education, problem solving, and service to her community. After the incarceration of her minor brother, as an adult, she became empowered to create solutions to funnel talent, which resulted in B360. B360 is an organization that utilizes dirt bike culture to end the cycle of poverty, disrupt the prison pipeline, and build bridges in communities through STEM education, community engagement, workforce pipelining, and events. The organization is changing the perception of engineers and dirt bike riders. I've had the opportunity, that sounds very professional, okay? Let me just cue this up for you. Brittany is a very special human being. I've been outside with her and some of the guys and girls that she works with in order to do the work that she's doing with B360. They're working toward building the first dirt bike campus in the nation. Clap it up for that. She's about $20 million short of her goal, but it is going to happen. I can see it coming to fruition because this is such an amazing, beautifully charming, and strong-spirited woman. You're going to hear from her in just a few seconds. But I would be remiss without saying that I just love her so much. Just like I love Baltimore, there are so many beautiful spirits here, so many beautiful people, and I'm so glad you get to meet her. Everybody clap it up for Brittany Young.
Now I need to figure out how this works. Oh. Good morning, everyone. I'm Brittany Young. I am born, raised, never leaving Baltimore because I love this city, right? Where else would I exist? And so with that, let's set the stage. It's a Sunday, I'm in Baltimore. I'm in Druid Hill Park, which is right around the corner. I can hear the engines revving, smell the gasoline, right? There are people popping wheelies, they're zipping, they're riding past me, right? It's just the feeling of being a kid in the summer or getting ready for the summer. In the corner, someone is learning how to fix their bike because parts are way too expensive, but we need a ride. Then I can go to school. On Monday, my teacher gives me this pop quiz. A train is leaving from Cleveland. I heard people are from Detroit. I have to get there, but I have to solve this problem. I live in Baltimore. I don't relate. I failed the quiz, and now I think I hate STEM, I hate science, and I don't want to go to school. Then the next day, my friend becomes a hashtag. A kid at the wrong place at the wrong time, lost to the streets, lost to the system, lost to gun violence, or in my city, lost to dirt bikes. Because possession of a dirt bike is a misdemeanor. Yes, you heard that right, a misdemeanor. This is a typical story for kids in Baltimore. It could also be Miami, Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, the list can go on. Anywhere in the world where people ride dirt bikes. Because unlike skateboarding, unlike bicycling, no one has ever created dedicated safe spaces for us. The only thing we've seen, especially following Freddie Gray Uprising, has been incarceration, a dirt bike police task force, yes, a SWAT team unit dedicated to upholding the law, and they do their job really well. It's not fair. The motorsports industry is $32 billion, and there's one black professional dirt bike rider. What do we have to look forward to? What do I get to do to relieve my stress? Nothing. But me, again, being that black girl from Park Heights in West Baltimore who went into chemical engineering, I wanted to be like the dirt bike riders, but I do not like the fall. Instead, I leaned into being Bill Nye the Science Guy, and I did all kind of crazy science experiments like blowing my eyebrows off, gluing people to the chair. I was that kid in school that got in trouble. But when I went into engineering, what I realized, I was ready for STEM, but STEM was not ready for me. And so for my first position, I was confused for the secretary. I was pissed. But this made me come back to Baltimore, do more programming. And then following the Freddie Gray Uprising, I lost my little brother to the prison system, right? So as a minor, he was charged for nonviolent offenses. And I became really steadfast in how do we keep showing people, especially black people, how smart we are. And I leaned deeper into STEM. Like the science behind popping that wheelie is a physics equation. That's Newton's first and second law. Like T, the technology needed so that you don't skid out on asphalt because you have best tires. Or E, the engineering needed to make that mat noise, but to also fix those bikes to get all of the jobs that are available. And then M, the mathematics needed when you mix your gas and your oil so your engine does not explode. We at B360 see people as assets, right? That we want to grow them from the ground up, but we also want to lean in. Every day, my work is rooted in how do I create a better world, right? How do we make sure we have opportunities like X Games? How do we make sure we have public spaces? How do I think about people like Tone, who are in our diversion program, who, yes, used to ride dirt bikes in streets, who, yes, went to jail, but also, yes, Tone is the smartest person that I know. Because every day he can get up, not only fix bikes, but anything is possible for him to repair and build. And Tone and everyone we work with deserves opportunity to grow their space and to grow their programming. And so at B360, we work with more than 9,000 young people in counting, where we do workforce development. Imagine being 14 years old, having a job where you're learning how to fix bikes, ride them and repair them, but then also teaching younger kids. In the schools, we're redirecting education so that school is not boring, right? Like you can learn about dirt bikes in that physics equation and it's gonna make sense. And then what I'm really, really, really proud of is how we're disrupting the prison pipeline. Our programming only costs about $1,500 per student, but incarceration is $3,800. I love math, I love numbers. 1,500 is less than 38,000. And so when we think about investment into communities, especially the black communities, right, it was how do we take all of the work that we're doing, because what's next? Tone, Marvin, Deron that you saw in our slides, Kamaya, they deserve a dedicated space. And like Alana mentioned, yes, I'm raising $20 million for a campus. And why it's not a park? A park is a small idea, right? A park is like, yes, they could go there and ride. People have talked about it for years and for generations before me, but a campus is going to live beyond me. It's a space that is going to be designed that one day helmets will fit my nice big black head, because right now there are none. That yes, you can ride and fix your bikes, but that can be training, that can be resources, right? And we may start with one location, 10 years maybe a second location, 3 years maybe there's housing added to it, right? So really a campus model that is really where you can breathe dirt bikes, play dirt bikes, but also be educated every day and become a lifelong learner. And so this journey has not been easy, right? I think everyone knows working in public spaces is difficult. Our first stop was at the B&O Railroad Museum in 2021. This was a 3-acre parking lot, right? So think of a B&O museum, so a railroad museum, and right behind it, we just took over the overflow lot where there were just cars. People thought this was so hard, and it was very easy. The next thing was going to an abandoned rec center. This rec center was 10 acres. It was on the same campus, though, as the police department. And then the neighborhood was just not a good neighborhood. It was too many issues with the community. They were not ready to accept what we were doing and our style of riding, right? So it was a good, beautiful space. We had a lot of fun in 2022, but we had to get out of there. And then we started doing more events. So when we started taking over downtown with section events, right? So similar to X Games. And so that allows positive reinforcement, but also for people to see dirt bike riding in a new way, in a new element. And now where we are, if I can get that to work, is at Bocheck Rec Center in East Baltimore. Again, something that people didn't think was possible, that you can find 15 acres in East Baltimore in the middle of a residential neighborhood. There's a football field, there's a basketball court, and in the back of this field, we made a dirt bike track. And why this neighborhood works is because we did our due diligence on both sides. On one side, thinking about, of course, what our riders need, what our young people need to thrive. They need a building, they need space. But then also for the community, they are very used to noise pollution because they are in a major highway. They're used to trains because of the train track in the back. This is also a dirt bike neighborhood, so it fit perfectly. And every summer, and I'm getting ready right now, I'm already tired, we serve about 400 campers, right? And so we're constantly piloting this model to keep showing people it works. People thought this was very hard. It's not. And our benefit has been working with Baltimore City Recs and Parks, having our mayor behind us, and me leading this charge and doing this work. But the one thing I will be remiss in saying that we make sure we have to do, right, is the other side of this work is policy reform. So now we're the diversion program for Baltimore City. This means instead of people going to jail for dirt bikes, we can make sure for anyone for nonviolent offense, they actually have training, redirection, and programming. And so as we think about development, it's not how do I just get bills passed to gain more money, but it's how do I think about bills and legislation to make sure people can stay in Baltimore, to stay in our neighborhoods, to stay and thrive. And anyone in development work, that is my charge to you all. You can't just do one side without the other. And it does feel really good saying this. We also secured $3 million in federal funding. So this is the first time that a smaller, thank y'all. Thank you very much. This is the first time that a smaller Black-led organization has secured this much money. And this was very pivotal because it shows that, yes, we can get federal investment, we can have people behind us. Yes, the laws in Baltimore are still not right, but we have to build a space, right? Which means I'll have to work on policy reform. We have to change zoning and permitting in Baltimore City. And having this investment means that more people will get behind us, and we're just getting started. So if you don't take away anything else from today, it is think about what you love to do to relieve your stress. Some people maybe like to skateboard. Some people maybe like yoga. Some people like public speaking, not me. And think about if that thing was demonized, would you still do it? Like if I couldn't go to the spa and it was illegal, I'm going to jail because I'm going to the spa. Think about if you didn't have a way to relieve your stress, or if you didn't have a space to do it. And that's what we're really focusing on at B360. We deserve spaces for people who want to ride dirt bikes safely. We deserve spaces for Black kids in our own communities to be educated. We deserve spaces in Baltimore that look like us, that feel like us, that breathe like us, and to be invested into. So like Alana said, I'm raising $20 million. If you would like to learn more about me or B360, head to b360baltimore.org, donate, but also take the charge of equal and equitable investment into Black communities and communities, period, leads to lasting impressions, and we need everyone to help do this work. Thank y'all very much.
Isn't she just charming? Knowledgeable about what she does. Love it. Are you having a good time? Okay, wonderful. Do you have your little purple books? Hold up your purple books. Booklet, book, program, pamphlet. So many words. We're gonna do a little overview of the week. So just flip through it. There's so many things to do. So many things to see. I'm gonna open up a page. Who's going to Inner Harbor 2.0, Inventing Waterfront Placemaking in a Post-Industrial Society? I see a hand in the front, a hand in the front, a hand in the back. Okay, let's flip open to another page. We're gonna do this together. Everybody say hi to Anthony. Hi, Anthony. He's my personal photographer. I am famous, if you didn't catch that drift yet. You can Google me. My daughter does it in her middle school classroom down the street. She goes to Baltimore Design School. She'll be a placemaker just like me. She often does the Google thing. Who's going to the Howard Street Block Party? Okay. They're doing a good job with this curation, man, because I love couples tea. Has anyone been to couples tea in Baltimore? Yep. Wonderful tea. Placemaking with federal agencies. That sounds important. Jamal, are you going to placemaking with federal agencies? He looking at me like, why would I need that at Lexington Market? I'm gonna introduce two folks right after this. They are going to give you a welcome to MICA, right, Jennifer Gould?
That is accurate.
That's accurate. So I'm gonna introduce you to Jennifer Gould of Neighborhood Design Center and Rob Sabal, who's the provost here at MICA. He's the vice provost for academic affairs, right here. I went to MICA. Clap it up for MICA. So y'all can make y'all way. They're gonna give you a warm welcome to MICA's campus. We're gonna be here a little bit for Placemaking Week, but we'll be in some other places too, just like you'll see in your purple pamphlet. All right, thank you. Hey, Rob.
I'm joining Rob Sabal, MICA's provost, to have a moment of gratitude because MICA has so generously sharing this space with us as a in-kind partner. And it's, as we can all observe, a beautiful space and a welcoming space. And it has all the things we might need to learn, being an educational place. And so Rob is just gonna tell us a little bit about being part of MICA's world.
Thanks so much. I know, I'm gonna use this. So, good morning, everybody. Good morning. It is an honor to be here this morning to welcome you to the campus of the Maryland Institute College of Art, MICA, Maryland Institute College of Art. We're thrilled that the 4th International Placemaking Week convening chose Baltimore as its host city, and we're even more delighted that MICA is home base for many of the activities that are going to happen over the course of this week. As you can tell from the thoughtful and very provocative presentations that you've just seen and heard, this convening promises to raise important questions, challenge perceived wisdom, and catalyze new frameworks for the making and unmaking of places. And one part of MICA's mission statement is to thrive with Baltimore, So that's part of how we conceive of our institution's mission. And it's a commitment beyond reciprocity and transaction. It speaks to unity, the understanding that the intellectual and the creative capacity of MICA's people and programs inheres in Baltimore's communities, animating places, co-creating programs, and collaborating on solutions. And you've already actually met some of MICA's people here on the stage, whether you knew it or not. But you'll find MICA's designers and artists and curators, educators, faculty, staff, students, and alumni partnering with community groups, with business associations, neighborhood coalitions, economic development agencies, NGOs, art and culture organizations, workforce development programs, high schools, colleges, and state and local government to advance equity and opportunity, housing access and affordability, environmental preservation and restoration, public health and safety, educational opportunities, and simply to add beauty, wonder, and awe to our city. Thriving with Baltimore means creating and maintaining networks of relationships, a multiplicity of one-on-one connections that start with humility and curiosity, and that are nurtured through a recognition that knowledge and wisdom are earned through lived experience. We thrive with Baltimore by constantly attending to how we do what we do, and at its core, it's amplifying opportunities for purposeful work. There are 16 faculty, staff, and alumni of MICA presenting on 6 different panel sessions during this convening. Among them, faculty of our master's program in social design, the director of the Community Arts Collaborative, and the director of our MFA program in community arts. And I invite you to visit those sessions and to hear more about our people and programs. But also, just as you spend time in Baltimore this week, you are bound to come across many people with connections to MICA, from entrepreneurs to teaching artists. Visiting Baltimore means visiting MICA, because the Institute is truly part of, not apart from, our home city. Welcome to Baltimore, welcome to MICA. Thanks.
Thanks, Rav. I can second that. NDC and our communities partner with MICA day in, day out. It's warp and weft. With that, let's get to learning.